Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I live in a small neighborhood of about 20 homes. Each house has big driveways, triple garages, and at least 50 feet of road frontage. Parking has never been a problem in the 5 years I've been here. We're all friendly enough, waving on walks or chatting while getting mail. That changed last month. I was heading to work one Monday morning when I noticed an unfamiliar silver SUV parked in front of my house. Not near the edge, but right in the middle of my road frontage. I figured someone was visiting a neighbor, but the next day, the car was still there, and the day after that, and the day after that. By the fifth day, I was annoyed. Our lawn service couldn't mow the grass near the curb. Worse, I had scheduled furniture deliveries that week, and the first truck had trouble turning into my driveway because of the SUV. When the delivery guy left after struggling to back his truck in, I decided to do something. I wrote a note and put it under the SUV's windshield wiper. I mentioned that I'd noticed the car parked there for several days. I explained that I had deliveries coming that week and the trucks needed space to turn. I asked if they could park elsewhere just for 3 days and mentioned that the lawn service couldn't mow properly with a car there. I thanked them for understanding. The next morning, the note was gone, but the SUV stayed. Later that day, my phone dinged with a text from the neighbor on my other side. He warned me about the woman from the end of the street who was ranting about a note on her windshield. He said she used some choice words and kept saying it was public property and she could park wherever she wanted. I asked if it was a silver SUV, and he said yes. I thanked him for telling me. I was irritated but didn't want to make things worse. A few days later, the SUV was gone. Perfect timing, I had to go to the grocery store, so when I came back, I parked in front of my own house. The next morning, I opened my door to get the newspaper and saw the owner of the SUV standing near my car holding up her middle finger at my doorbell camera. She walked away when she saw me. When I went to my car later, I found a note under my windshield that read, F you. Over the next few days, more notes showed up with messages like libtard and move your stupid car, all because I parked in front of my own house. That's when I decided enough was enough. I started watching her house at the far end of our development. I noticed different cars with out-of-state plates parked there every few days. I'd see people with suitcases going in and out. For someone living alone, she had many visitors. One evening while browsing online, I checked Airbnb listings in our area. I found her house listed with professional photos and a description about our quiet, exclusive neighborhood. She was charging over $300 per night. I don't usually get involved in other people's business, but she had been leaving nasty notes for weeks just because I parked in front of my own house. I checked our county zoning rules and found that short-term rentals were not allowed in our area. The next morning, I called the county zoning commissioner's office. I told the county official I wanted to report a zoning violation in my neighborhood. When asked what the problem was, I explained that a neighbor was running an Airbnb, which I believed wasn't allowed in our zone. The official told me I was right and that short-term rentals under 30 days were prohibited. They asked for evidence, and I offered to send the Airbnb listing link. The official was surprised when I mentioned how long I thought she'd been doing this. They explained that fines could be substantial at $250 per rental, not per day. I said I just wanted to make sure our zoning laws were followed. About 2 weeks later, I was bringing in my trash cans and saw a county vehicle at her house. A man in a suit was giving her official-looking papers. She looked angry and was pointing toward my house. The outcome was clear. The next day, her Airbnb listing disappeared. A week later, another neighbor told me she got thousands in fines. She'd been renting her place for almost 5 years, nearly every weekend. She stopped parking in front of my house completely. I haven't seen that silver SUV near my property since. I later found out she parked in front of my house because her driveway was full with her guests' cars. She'd been running her illegal rental for so long that she thought no one could touch her. A simple trip to the mall ended with me back in the hospital after crossing paths with the wrong person. 3 weeks ago, I slipped on ice outside my apartment building. My leg twisted under me, and I fractured my tibia. The doctor said it was a clean break, but I'd need to stay off it completely for at least 6 weeks. So there I was, stuck with crutches and a bulky cast from knee to ankle. I work from home so I could still do my job, but after 2 weeks in my apartment, I was going stir crazy. I decided to go to the mall, buy some new books, get lunch at the food court, just be around other humans. Getting to the mall was hard. Public transportation with crutches is tough. By the time I arrived, my armpits were sore from the crutches, but I wanted to enjoy my day out. I was sitting on a bench near the food court, resting before finding something to eat, when I noticed a woman with 2 kids, boys who looked about 7 and 9, staring at my crutches. The boys were pointing and whispering to each other. They approached me. The older boy called my crutches cool sticks and asked what happened to my leg. I told him I broke it falling on ice and explained these were crutches that helped me walk while my leg healed. The younger boy asked if they could play with my crutches, saying they wanted to use them as laser guns. I said no, explaining that I needed them to walk. The boys looked disappointed but seemed to accept my answer until their mother stepped in. She wore expensive clothes and had that haircut that signals I want to speak to your manager. The woman told me that her boys had asked nicely to play with my sticks and said it would only be for a few minutes. I explained these were medical equipment that I couldn't walk without, adjusted for my height. She called me selfish, pointing out that I was just sitting there. She said her boys had been good that day and deserved a reward. Was this lady for real? I repeated that these weren't toys and that I needed them to move around. She said I could just sit there for 5 minutes and asked what was wrong with me. She said her boys just wanted to play pretend shooting games for a little while. I told her I understood they wanted to play but couldn't give up my crutches. I suggested they could get toy guns at the store instead. Her face changed like I'd insulted her family. She asked how dare I suggest she buy her children violent toys. She said I was being difficult on purpose. People in the food court were staring. I was uncomfortable with the attention and my leg was starting to hurt from sitting too long. I decided to leave. I said I needed to go. I positioned my crutches and started to stand up. What happened next was shocking. When I put weight on my crutches, the woman kicked one of them out from under me. I lost my balance instantly. I fell, and pain shot through my injured leg as I hit the floor. My cast hit the ground hard, and I felt something shift in my leg. I screamed in pain, holding my leg. Through tears, I saw the 2 boys grab my crutches and run off, laughing like it was a game. Their mother smirked at me and hurried after them, saying, "This is what happens to selfish people." Several people rushed over to help me. One person asked if I was okay, and said they saw the woman kick my crutch. Another person told someone to get security. A mall employee told me not to move and said they were calling for help. I was in too much pain to do anything but lie there. The fall had jarred my fracture and it felt like broken glass inside my leg. Someone put their jacket under my head, and another person called emergency services. Soon mall security arrived. One stayed with me while others went to look for the woman and her kids based on what witnesses said. They found them in a store about 10 minutes later. The kids were still playing with my crutches, using them as pretend rifles. The paramedics arrived around the same time security guards were bringing the woman and her children back. She was screaming that she was being harassed and her children were just having fun. The woman complained that I wasn't even using the crutches and her kids deserved to have fun too. The security guard told her she had assaulted someone and stolen medical equipment and police were coming. She denied assaulting anyone and said I was faking my injury for attention. The police arrived shortly after. They talked to witnesses while the paramedics checked my leg. It wasn't good. The fall had displaced my fracture, meaning I would need surgery to reset the bone. When I was being loaded onto a stretcher, I saw the police handcuffing the woman. Her kids were crying and she was still yelling about how unfair everything was. One officer came over to me before I was taken to the ambulance. The police officer told me they were charging the woman with assault and theft. He said they would need my statement later and mentioned that Child Protective Services had been contacted about her children. The next few days were hospital rooms, surgery, and pain medication. My recovery time was extended by at least another month because of the fall. My lawyer later told me that the woman was charged with assault causing bodily harm and theft. Child Protective Services found that this wasn't her first time encouraging her children to take things from others. I'm back home now, with a more complicated cast and stronger pain medication. My friends take turns staying with me to help. I'm pressing charges, and my lawyer says we have a strong case for a civil lawsuit. Now I'm anxious about going out in public with my crutches. I keep thinking about that moment of falling, wondering if I could have done something different, but I wasn't the one who did something wrong. Last Tuesday was one of those days that make it hard to keep your cool. My day had been a marathon of exhaustion. My wife and I spent hours out with our little one, doctor appointments, grocery shopping, and dealing with a teething toddler who decided that today was the perfect day to test the full range of his vocal abilities. By late afternoon, all three of us were running on fumes and I just wanted to get home, put my feet up, and maybe enjoy 5 minutes apiece before dinner chaos began. The universe, however, had other plans. When we reached the bus stop, I was already calculating how quickly we could get home and collapse. The bus pulled up and I felt relief until I noticed both designated stroller spots were taken. The driver told us that he couldn't take us this time and said the next bus would arrive in 30 minutes. 30 minutes. With a tired toddler in the cold. Perfect. My wife shot me that look, the one that says stay calm while saying, if we don't get home soon, I might lose my mind. Our little one was already starting to squirm in his stroller. That pre-meltdown wiggle that every parent recognizes was dread. We waited and waited. The minutes crawled by like hours. Finally, another bus appeared. It was fairly packed with the after-work crowd, but I only spotted one stroller through the window. Hope flickered inside me. I asked the driver if we could board and if there was space for a stroller. He said there was one spot available and told us to come in. The relief I felt was huge. We moved up the ramp and into the bus, ready to secure our stroller in the designated area, only to find it occupied by what I can only describe as a mobile department store. There she was, a woman in her 50s lounging on one of those fold-up seats marked, "Please, give up this seat when needed for wheelchairs or strollers." Around her, shopping bags were placed to claim maximum territory, bags from grocery stores, clothing shops, and what looked like half of a home goods section. I stood there with my stroller waiting for her to notice us. She didn't, or pretended not to. I politely tried to get her attention, explaining that I needed to park my stroller in the designated area. She ignored me, not even looking up from her phone. I tried again, addressing her more directly. Only then did she finally look up as if I'd asked her to give me her kidney rather than follow basic public transportation rules. She said she was sitting there, as if that settled the matter. I pointed out that the area was reserved for strollers and wheelchairs, even pointing to the sign above her. She sighed, shuffled a few bags around, and created a gap that might have been enough for a doll stroller, not a real one with an actual child in it. She asked if I was happy now, clearly assuming I would accept this. I wasn't. I said the space she'd made wasn't enough. I needed to properly secure the stroller for safety reasons. She complained about where she was supposed to put all her things, mentioning that the bus was packed. I told her that wasn't my concern and reminded her again that the space was for strollers and wheelchairs, not shopping bags. She said she was there first, as if that gave her special rights to the space. By this point, my patience was hanging by a thread. I reminded her that we'd already had to skip one bus, that my child was tired, that we were all tired, and that she was sitting in a seat clearly marked to be given up when needed. She said she was tired too and asked if I knew how heavy her bags were. The conversation was going nowhere, and I could feel other passengers watching. My wife was giving me that don't make a scene look, but I was past caring. I called out to the driver for help. The driver, who had been watching through the mirror, made an announcement that echoed through the entire bus. The driver said he couldn't drive until the stroller was properly secured. He said she needed to move her bags and herself from that area for safety reasons. He added that if she refused, he would have to ask her to exit the bus. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Now it wasn't just me asking her to move, it was the driver, was the backing of every passenger who wanted to get home without further delays. Her face flushed. With exaggerated movements, she gathered her shopping bags, muttering loud enough for everyone to hear. She said the situation was ridiculous and that she was a paying passenger too. She said nobody respects older people anymore. She squeezed herself into a standing space, clutching her bags like precious artifacts, clearly expecting someone to jump to her defense. Instead, what she got were irritated looks from fellow passengers who just wanted the bus to start moving. Someone from the back said she wasn't disabled and that the stroller had priority. Another passenger said some of them had places to be. Her muttering quieted down after that, though the resentful looks in our direction continued. We secured the stroller properly, and I felt the tension in my shoulders ease slightly. Our little trooper had somehow stayed calm through most of the drama, though in the last 5 minutes of the ride, he started to get fussy. My wife and I took turns distracting him with silly faces and his favorite toy until our stop arrived. As we got off, I caught a glimpse of the woman still standing with her mountain of bags, scowling. I felt a brief satisfaction knowing that her entitled behavior had earned her nothing but a less comfortable ride and the silent judgment of an entire bus load of people. Sometimes public transportation reveals more about humanity than we ever wanted to know. I turned 16 and wanted my driver's license. I was excited to drive myself to school, to friends' houses, or just around town with music playing. My mom taught me for months, and I felt good behind the wheel. Mom grew up in the city, so she drove more aggressively. She taught me about busy intersections, highway merging, and parallel parking. I felt ready for my test. The day of my test came. My dad took me out for last-minute practice before we went to the Department of Motor Vehicles. This was my first time driving with just him, and I was nervous. When I sat in the driver's seat, I knew this would be different. My dad started his safety lecture. He warned me that every car on the road wanted to kill me, and I needed to drive carefully. I told him Mom covered defensive driving already. He said my mother drives like she's racing, and he would show me proper driving. I left our driveway feeling tense. For 15 minutes, my dad criticized everything I did. My steering, mirror checks, even how I sat. He told me to sit up straighter to see better. When I said I could see fine, he told me not to argue, saying he'd driven 30 years without accidents. At our first stop sign, I slowed and stopped smoothly. My dad said it was too abrupt and I'd give someone whiplash. I asked how that was a normal stop. He told me never to accelerate when a stop sign was in sight, to take my foot off the gas as soon as I saw one, no exceptions. This seemed excessive. In our flat state, you can see stop signs from far away. I tried explaining this. I said sometimes that wouldn't work, especially on long roads where you see the stop sign from really far. His face turned red. He said he was trying to help me pass my test and asked why I couldn't just take his advice instead of arguing. Not wanting to fight before my test, I gave in. I said I'd take my foot off the gas when I saw a stop sign. He thanked me and said that was better. I knew what was next. A 6-mile flat road with a stop sign at the end. You could see that sign from half a mile away today. I smiled knowing what I'd do. When that stop sign came into view, I took my foot off the gas. We were going 45 miles per hour but started slowing right away. My dad asked why I was slowing already. I told him I was following his advice. I saw the stop sign, so no gas, no exceptions. After 15 seconds, we were going half the speed limit. Dad moved uncomfortably but stayed quiet. After 30 seconds, we crawled at maybe 5 miles per hour. Finally, he said I could speed up now. I reminded him he said no exceptions, and I was just following instructions. For the last 10 feet, I looked at my dad briefly. He looked confused, then understood. Our car stopped about 20 feet before the actual stop sign. I asked what I should do now. Dad was quiet, then laughed. He called me a smart A. I said I was just following his advice. He admitted that maybe he went too far. When I pushed him, he told me to use my judgment on slowing down, but stay cautious. The tension disappeared. My dad relaxed and stopped nitpicking. The rest of our practice went well, and he even liked my 3-point turn. At the Department of Motor Vehicles, I felt ready. Dad hugged me before I went in. He said I would do great and was a good driver, even if I was a smart A. I passed my test easily. The examiner said I was very cautious for a young driver. I wanted to tell my dad his advice helped, just not how he meant it. I learned something about my dad that day. He could laugh at himself and change his approach. I respected that, and I still take my foot off the gas at stop signs, just not from half a mile away. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.